Norman here, and are you still not subscribed to Matt's channel? Well, if you're not, hit the subscribe button because he's giving out free picks each and every week. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
UFC 296 live on pay-per-view from Las Vegas, the last card of 2023, guys. We're treated to a great card here on paper. Some bad news to start off the top card. I just saw this morning when I woke up. Ian Gary is out due to a sickness. Apparently he's in the hospital. That's what Dana White said. So tough to see that because I was really looking forward to that fight versus Luque. Good news is, though, we have a lot of good fights on this card, so they're just going to bump up Emmett versus Mitchell, which is a main card fight anyway. So it's a loss, of course. I wanted to see, obviously with all the drama around Ian Gary, too, I would have loved to see what happened in that fight. Tough to see. Hopefully they book that in the new year. Link.me/system capping for everything system capping. Resume, client comments, client opportunities, record, and so much more. Currently handicapping UFC, NFL, NBA, and the NHL. PJ is back January 4th. This week, big client card expected for this card, last card of 2023. Beat the Books is available on YouTube, of course. Recently now, the past I think three months now, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else you can get podcasts. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. It has been a great year. Let's do a 2023 recap. We'll do one obviously in January as well after this card. So obviously, like I mentioned, we'll have a big card for this pay-per-view event. So things will change, but it's going to be another profitable year no matter what happens, right? Another profitable year in the UFC. That's 8 straight profitable years for myself, 3 years for clients, and 5 years on YouTube. Remember, I started this service now three and a half years, 3 years ago now. Profitable every year in all sports. 63% average line was plus money this year, right? Over 100 bets. So keep that in mind. Very happy with that due to the plus money. These aren't, minus 250 plays, minus 200 plays. These are average line plus money. 63%. I'm happy with that. The highlight was actually 2-fight parlays this year. 68% 2-fight parlays. We missed one last week, so we dropped. We were at around 69 if we rounded up 70%. But we're at 68% 2-fight parlays on here. Very happy with that. We'll have another one, I'm sure, this week. 8 straight profitable weeks was the best run, guys. That's 2 months. 2 months straight. Profitable weeks in the UFC. That was the best run this year. 69% half of the year we averaged. And that's an average line plus money. 69% for the first half of the year. We got super hot there in the first half of the year. Over 68 units long term. Biggest tickets won on the year. We had a John Jones by submission. Plus 550 over Gone. That was the nicest, biggest plus money winning ticket, single winning ticket on the year. We also had some other nice ones. Grant Dawson by points, plus 260. Ian Gary by decision, plus 240 over Magny. We had Kamzat plus 280 by decision over Usman. That's just some highlight winning tickets from this past year. Like I mentioned, I'll do the final recap in January after the holidays. Quick recap from last week. No profit last week. Smaller unit card for myself. I didn't love the card personally. We did give some out free winners. Hopefully you detail some of those winners. Obviously Song I gave out. I was on him as well. Hats off to him, right? He did exactly what I expected him to do. Make it an MMA fight. Mix in some wrestling. Mix in some striking. Don't just go out and bang with Gutierrez. He mixed in it very well. Dominated for most of the fight and won by decision. So yeah, Song was always the play there. The price wasn't great, but a decision or a later stoppage I saw in that fight, and he won by decision. Hats off to Roundtree. I did think Smith was somewhat live in that fight due to the plus money. But Roundtree, he just showed if Smith was going to stand and bang with him for 3 rounds, it wasn't a good idea, right? Smith had to get that fight down to the ground. He didn't really attempt it enough. I would have liked to see him try to attempt to get it down to the ground more. If you're going to stand at range with Roundtree, you're playing with fire. And Roundtree was able to just pick him apart and eventually finish him in the 3rd round. So impressive. Roundtree's calling for a title shot. I don't agree. Let him beat a top 5 guy before he gets a title shot. Right, Anthony Smith, end of his career. Nice win on paper, but again, end of his career. No, I don't think he deserves a title shot. Roundtree needs to fight another guy, maybe 2 guys, to get that title shot. Let's hear from my friend Kristen before we get into this card.
For you sports bettors out there, let's be honest, you probably need a little bit of help beating those books. System capping is a proven long-term winner against the sports betting market in multiple sports. He's built a worldwide clientele due to his high winning percentage over the years. Be sure to click the link on the bio down here to check out his profile, and you can also find out his resume, client comments, podcasts, and subscription opportunities. I'm going to be following him along too, so let's win some money together this season.
Shop around. Shop around. Shop around. Shop around. Have multiple books, guys. Very important in the UFC. Most important sport to have multiple books to get the best number prop, round prop, whatever you are betting. Have multiple books. They do vary from book to book. Can't stress that enough. Let's get right into it. Main event. Edwards minus 160 versus Covington. Plus 110, 115, 120. There are some decent prices out there on Covington. This one has been talked about for about a year now. Here it is. It's here. Colby. I first thought maybe it would be in England. I thought it would be in England, but it seems like Edwards wants to get that fan base out here in Vegas. He mentioned that in an interview. He wanted to fight in Vegas. Colby was bashing him, right? Colby was saying, he robbed his English fans of a title shot out there. But I don't really know exactly why that happened. Obviously, timing had to play a part of that. But I do think Edwards wants to defend his title here in Vegas, as he did stress in his interviews this past week. Colby hasn't fought for almost 2 years now. That is concerning for me. You know how I handicap when guys don't fight for 2-3 years and there's a long layoff? It does worry me. It does worry me. Not even just the ring rust part is, why was he out, right? Obviously, he had some injuries. He got beat up by Masvidal on the street. There was a few reasons for that, right? And then he wasn't accepting fights besides the title shot, right? Does he deserve this title fight? I would say no. Back-to-back losses versus Usman, right? And then he beat up an old Jorge Masvidal who was washed up, and he just wrestled him for 5 rounds. I don't think he deserves this title shot. I actually think it should have been Bilal Muhammad. But here we are. Right? So, I think Bilal, he is the backup fighter for this, which I was very happy to see. He's the backup fighter. Obviously, I do think both are going to make the fight. But I think Bilal gets the winner here. Bilal will get the winner here, so I'm happy for him because I know he's been going through a lot, not getting fights. Let's quickly look at Colby's resume, right? It isn't anything special, guys, right? His last win besides Jorge was Woodley back in 2020, where Woodley was towards the end of his career. He got a rib injury in that fight. That wasn't the Woodley, on his nice run prior to that. And then Lawler in 2019. Again, out of his prime. He can still fight, obviously. It's still a nice win. But that was Lawler out of his prime as well. Edwards hasn't lost since 2015, guys. And the last loss was obviously against Usman, when his wrestling and his takedown defense wasn't up to par. Right? Edwards has improved that wrestling and takedown defense, which has shown versus Usman in his last fight. Mainly in his last fight. The takedown defense has gotten much better, and the grappling as well. Right, he can throw up some submissions. If Colby does get him down, look for Edwards to work off his back and obviously throw up some submissions as well. We already knew he was one of the best strikers in the UFC, right? We know Edwards is a top level, very high level striker. Very good kick game, as we've seen the headshot, right? that he headshot out or headshot back, whatever he says. He has shirts of that now, of the headshot. And I get it, right? He's promoting himself, so good to see on him. What I like about him is very patient. He does have KO power on the feet as well. Very good boxer, Muay Thai, kickboxing. Very high-level striker. He's going to have a big advantage on the feet against Colby Covington. Back-to-back wins versus Usman. Colby had back-to-back losses versus Usman. Colby off a 2-year-long layoff is an issue for me as well. Edwards will have a clear striking advantage, and we know Colby will have the wrestling advantage. It's grappler, wrestler versus striker, but I do think Edwards' improved wrestling and takedown defense will be enough for him to win this fight. Right? Colby's path, in my eyes, he has one path only, and it's to win by decision due to suffocating you, keeping you down on the ground, landing a little bit of ground and pound while he's down there. But that's his only path. He's not going to submit Edwards on the ground. TKO, it's possible. It's possible it's MMA at the end of the day, but it's low odds that he's going to TKO Edwards on the ground. I could see, there is a possibility, the highest possibility is Covington to win by decision. Now, when you look at Edwards, I see multiple paths for him to win. Obviously, volume on the feet, was able to avoid a ton of takedowns and just beat him striking, right? Edwards could also sneak in a takedown or two as well. Keep in mind, right, Edwards took down Usman in that fight. Edwards could sneak that in as well. And these other paths to win this fight, it's obviously knockout or TKO Covington on the feet. He's going to have a big striking advantage. And he does have a sneaky submission game as well. Obviously, lower odds that happens. But Edwards has more paths to win this fight than Colby Covington. Right? If you guys are backing Colby Covington due to the value here, there's no real value at the plus 110, plus 120, wherever you can get it. The value would be by decision at plus 250. And if you do like Colby Covington, I know there are backers out there. You bet him by decision. Again, that's his only path. Again, it's MMA, so you could see a doctor stoppage, you could see an injury from Edwards, and that could happen. I get it, right? But the odds are, if Colby Covington wins this fight, it is by decision. There's no secret around that, guys. So you play the plus 250 if you like Colby Covington to win this fight. I like Edwards to retain the title. I like backing the champion off his first defense. Obviously, Usman, it's the same fighter, Usman. His first new opponent defense, and that's Covington for Edwards. I don't like the layoff on Covington. The injury on the street as well. And only one path to win this fight, in my eyes, is decision and hold Edwards down. I think Edwards has improved his takedown defense enough, his wrestling, his scrambling, his grappling, and I think he's going to be able to avoid being held down. So I'm going to play Edwards here. It's going to be a free pick for you guys on Edwards. The price is okay enough to bet straight for me. I don't go higher than this, to be honest. I missed the best line at minus 138. I didn't think it would climb much higher. It didn't climb that much higher. But Edwards is going to be the play for me. Again, if you think Covington wins this fight, play the decision prop to get that plus 250. And I do think this fight probably will go 5 rounds, guys. So if you want to bet Edwards by decision, you're not getting a great price, right? It's in the 100s. So, there's not a lot of value there. And again, I could see a later stoppage in this fight. You could see it, right? If the way you see it is Covington is unable to get the takedowns, and Edwards just pieces him apart and eventually hurts him on the feet. You could see that, right? Like Usman hurt Covington in the first fight there, right? And ended up finishing that fight. So it is possible, but Covington does have that dog in him. I'll give him that. So I could see Edwards just winning by decision. So over in rounds and this fight to go the distance will be my play here on this main fight. Pantoja minus 188 versus Royval plus 162. Our rematch we saw from 2 years ago. Pantoja submitted Royval in the second round. This will be Pantoja's first title defense, which is something I just mentioned in the main event. I like looking at champions in their first title event. More often than not, I can't give you a percentage, just from my knowledge over the years watching UFC, when you win that first title shot, the next fight, more than often you win that fight. Right? You keep the belt for 1 or 2 fights at least, right? And I do think Pantoja does that here and does get that title defense. Pantoja will have a wrestling advantage here. It's clear. He did that in the first fight against Royval. He took him down multiple times in that fight. Ended up getting a submission. He needs to avoid the brawl with Royval. That's where I think Royval is live. Right? Royval wants to stand and bang. He can catch you on the feet and then maybe jump on for a submission, right? Royval also has great submissions, but you're not going to really submit Pantoja, right? Pantoja's never been finished, guys. So that's why I really like him as well in this spot here. The price at 188 isn't terrible, but you can get Pantoja to finish the fight. TKO, submission, knockout, whatever it is. Get that at low -100s. This is a 5-round fight, guys. Low odds, I see this fight going 5 rounds. Both these guys like to come forward. Both these guys like to bang. Both these guys have high submission rates. So it's very difficult to see, this fight going 5 rounds. Very difficult. Now, both guys do have, fairly good cardio to go 5 rounds. Pantoja maybe not as good cardio as Royval, to be honest. But Royval does use a lot of energy early. We've never seen him go 5 rounds. Keep that in mind. Pantoja... he didn't look like he was getting tired in that last fight against Brendan, but I think it's just more how he fights. Like he looks like he's getting tired and he just comes on strong, right? So again, it's very difficult to see this go 5 rounds due to the styles these guys fight, right? So fight not to go the distance will be a play. Pantoja to win inside the distance may make my client card as well here. Guys, I just have a hard time seeing Royval win this fight. Where, right? Catching Pantoja, but again, Pantoja's never been finished. He's never been finished, so I haven't seen it yet. Sure, Royval could win this fight. I get it. Love where he trains. He trains in a high altitude. I think he'll be ready for this fight. I've seen him chinny multiple times. I've seen him submitted. He has a lot of losses on his record. Pantoja first defense. There's a lot of reasons why to like Pantoja here. So I'm going to bet Pantoja. Going to be the free play here. I'm going to lean the finish as well in the fight not to go all 5 rounds. Manov -600. Yikes. Versus Thompson +450. Huge price here on Manov. I agree he should be favorite, but not at -600. Guys, this is the toughest test yet. Veteran fighter in Thompson. Been around the block, fought the top guys, and is a tough style to fight. Manov's never seen a guy to fight like Thompson, and you can't really bring in a guy. Like you can't. I know he was training with Luque, but come on, you can't replicate Thompson in the ring, right? The karate style, the awkwardness from Thompson, and we know what Manov's past should be. It's not going to be stand and bang with Thompson. You could lose that fight. Many have. It's going to be get the fight down on the ground. Use the grappling where he has an advantage, right? Thompson's 63% takedown defense is not good enough. I think Manov gets his fight down to the ground at some point. The submission is live there, but keep in mind, Thompson's never been submitted. Manov does have back-to-back submissions. He didn't have a lot of success versus Jeff Neal to get down to the ground, but he was able to pull off a submission. So if Thompson's able to dance around, it is a big cage. If he's able to dance around, use his movement well, use his karate style to pick apart Manov, he is live. It's just I'm very high on Manov. Very high. Right? I do think he's going to be able to get the fight down to the ground. -600 is very difficult to bet. I have this more at maybe -400, maybe even -300. Just because we haven't seen him fight. This is going to be the toughest fight he's fought, plus the style. Right, the style is tough to back. But I think Manov is going to be strong enough and stronger than Thompson is going to be able to get him down to the ground where he's live for a TKO finish. A decision is where I think there is some value. I think Thompson could survive it. Right, Thompson doesn't really get finished a ton. He just ends up usually, and he does have great defense on the ground, decent get-up game as well. But I think this Manov is going to be too strong for him. Right. And that finish is live. Good decision price. I'm looking at the books right now. The price, you can get like a +300 by decision. I think that's live as well on Manov. But yeah, my play has to be Manov. I'm not going to bet this -600. If I do, it would have to fit into like a rare 3-fight parlay, which I bet rarely. You can't bet a 2-fight parlay the Rock Manov featured in it, right? It's gonna be like minus 160 or minus 150, even if you find another favorite that you like at a lower price. You just can't bet it. So Rock Manov's the play. If you can get a plus money, like I see plus money submission plus 120. Not enough meat on the bone there. Thompson's never been submitted, right? So sure, this could be the time, but at plus 120, I'm not willing to find out. Plus 300 by decision's a good price there. It may look that way. I haven't bet this as of yet. If I do, it's going to be some way with Rachmanov involved. Ferguson plus 240 versus Pimblett minus 300. Tony's still around, which it's hard to see for me. At one time, this is one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. Loved his style, love his coming forward, love his tenacity. Just loved how he fights. He's just out of his prime now. I don't think he should be fighting anymore, guys. 6 straight losses. Great competition that he's losing to. I get it. But, the last 2 fights against Nate Diaz, right? End of his career as well. Same position as Ferguson. And then a winnable fight against Bobby Green. Bobby Green submitted him. Bobby Green doesn't submit guys. Against Nate Diaz, he looked terrible as well. Right? He just doesn't. If you get submitted by Bobby Green, Paddy Pimblett, this is what he does. He gets fights. He tries to submit guys very high level grappling. So a submission prop is live here on Pimblett. I see some good prices out there. Very good price. I think Pimblett could get this fight down to the ground if he wants. I think on the feet, Pimblett's not a great striker, guys. We know that. He can get. We've seen in pretty much every fight he got chin checked. Right? Every fight he's been rocked on the feet. Now, Ferguson doesn't have that power to do so. I don't see where Ferguson wins this fight. It's very difficult to see where he wins this fight for me. Right? He's not going to hurt you on the feet. I have a hard time seeing that. He's not going to take you down and out-wrestle you or out-grapple Pimblett. Where? Right? Ferguson, the funny part is Ferguson went to go train with David Goggins, who's like a crazy cardio trainer, warrior type of guy. He put him through his hell week. Apparently he did well. Ferguson, the issue never was his cardio or his training or coming into shape. He's older now. His speed is gone. Right? He doesn't have the chin that he used to. He's took a lot of damage throughout his career. So it's just not there anymore for him in my eyes. And I just have a hard time seeing him, even though there's value at plus 240. I just can't bet it. I just can't bet him at plus 240. I'm not high on Pimblett. I'm not, Pimblett's not a guy that I like to back at a big price like this. And, you can't bet Pimblett straight at minus 300. Could it fit in a 2-fight parlay? Sure. Could you find a nice outcome, maybe submission or fight doesn't go the distance on Pimblett? Sure. Could Ferguson last all 3 rounds and just take a beating? He could. He could do that as well. But Pimblett goes out to looks to finish fights, right? Against the Gordon fight, I know, not intriguing, right? It wasn't flashy, but Ferguson will try to bring the fight, so Pimblett will have chances to finish this fight. And I think he is live there for a finish. The play will be Paddy Pimblett. Don't love this price at minus 300. I wouldn't really be surprised at either outcome, guys, but there is value for a finish in this fight. Ferguson is tough enough to take a beating for 3 rounds. Let's keep that in mind. Pimblett doesn't really have knockout power on the feet, but he is live in the grappling TKO submission prop to finish the fight. Tough to call an outcome here. I do think Paddy Pimblett does enough to win this fight. He wants to prove the haters wrong. That's another thing. He's about to have twins. That's another thing, a little motivation here. Heard he had a good camp. Tony at the end of the career. I'll play Pimblett here. Last fight, guys. This was supposed to be the Ngari fight. Luke, I was looking forward to breaking that one down. We'll have to wait. Mitchell versus Emmett. Mitchell minus 225 versus Emmett plus 187. This is a little bit of a tricky one, right? Mitchell's taking this on short notice, 10 days notice, right? So it's a little interesting to see him a 2-1 favorite here, but I get it. It's the wrestling advantage, right? Emmett does not have great takedown defense at 46%. That's concerning. Now, I know a lot of his fights are stand and bang. A lot of guys don't try to take him down. Emmett does actually have some good offensive wrestling, Right? He has collegiate wrestling. Right? It's just his takedown defense is not great. Right? And Mitchell's over 3.5 per 15 is concerning for Emmett. And that's how Mitchell's going to want to fight. But Emmett's live to hurt him on the feet. That's what Emmett looks to do, right? It's 3 rounds. He's not going to have a ton of time to do it. But he likes to look for that early finish. He has the power to hurt Mitchell, and he's very durable to do so, right? He's able to show up in the later rounds and still hurt you. He's never out of a fight. He's shown that time and time again, right? So Mitchell's path is going to want to be to chain wrestle, but can he, due to the late short notice call, right? 10 days. Is he going to be able to chain wrestle for 3 rounds? Is he going to get tired? Is Emmett going to be able to pour it on in later rounds? That is possible. We've seen against Topuria. Topuria beat up both these guys fairly badly, but he actually beat up Mitchell more, right? Mitchell looked like an amateur versus Topuria. Mitchell wasn't able to get any takedowns. He wasn't able to strike with him. Topuria hurt him. Mitchell said he came into that fight injured. I don't know. I think Topuria is just very good. I think he's a future champion of this division. So Topuria beat up both these guys. Obviously, I love what I saw from Mitchell against Ige. But again, Ige did have takedown issues as well, right? He had bad takedown defense as well. Mitchell just dominated him with the wrestling. We were on Mitchell in that fight. Minus 225 is difficult for me to back due to the short notice. And Emmett's live to win this fight. He does have some wrestling. The takedown defense isn't there, but he could wrestle. He could maybe even take down Mitchell as well. Wouldn't be surprised there. But Mitchell's live for the submission as well. Great submissions from Mitchell. I think Emmett's only been submitted once. He has, yes. Looking at Sherdog here. He's been submitted once, and it was recently against Yair Rodriguez. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. I don't bet fights here on short notice at a price like this, so this will not make my client card. The play will be Mitchell due to the big wrestling advantage, but I think Emmett's live. If you could start getting Emmett in the plus 200s, I think maybe a smaller unit shot is worth it. But he's going to have to keep the fight standing, guys. If he doesn't, Mitchell's just going to dominate there, suffocate him, and maybe even find a submission at lower chance. But play will be Mitchell. Don't love it. Won't make my client card. I'm concerned about the short notice on the way Mitchell fights. And the way Mitchell fights is chain wrestling. And that, you need a lot of energy for that, right? And with Emmett's 1 KO shot ability on the feet, a little bit dangerous. So I'm staying away from this fight. I suggest maybe you do as well. That will do it, guys. That will do it. Last card for 2023 for the UFC. We'll be back strong in January. It's another great year for myself, clients, and for you video viewers as well. Hopefully you have been tailing. NFL video will be out tomorrow, so look out for that. Like I always say, guys, bet smart and know your limits. If you only watch a UFC card, happy holidays. Happy holidays, guys. I suggest you watch the NFL ones as well. Lots of free winners over there. But if not, happy holidays, Merry Christmas and all that. Have a good time with family, friends, etc. Bet smart and know your limits. Let's beat the books.